All right. Well, we're gonna get right into it.
You want
So, I would love some more. Look,
Yes.
so me and Will, me and the guest, we're already drunk. Matt is catching up. It's gonna be an awesome couple episodes. I'm happy everyone is here to enjoy this. Cheers, cheers, gents. Cheers.
Cheers.
So,
Cheers.
I don't know if I've ever talked about this. Oh, hang on.
Woo!
Oh,
I
God.
haven't drinking mine yet. I just wanted to say woo first.
You just want to say woo at the same time everyone else
Little
did.
sips.
So, a little bit of preamble. There are 16 lost episodes of The Wrong Room because there was different people. We were different hosts we were trying out with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Different
Gone
hosts.
forever. Never gonna hear them.
Never going to hear
hear
them. I actually did lose them. It is unfortunate.
Oh,
I
they're-
did lose
they're
them.
gone.
They're gone forever.
How'd you lose
But that's why I feel like it's important to make it up with the fact that everyone who was a prospective host for The Wrong Room is now going to be a guest. Obviously, last time we had Ben. Casey's been out doing his sick, badass band shit, you know, singing and getting laid and all the things that you're supposed to do when you're the frontman of a band.
True.
And
Crowd surfing.
crowd surfing, yeah.
Getting your
has he
car
crowd surfed?
towed.
Getting your car towed, yeah.
That's true for him.
That is, yeah.
I don't think recently, but that's true for him.
How many times has he had his car towed?
Oh, probably none, but he's the type of guy.
I mean, no, he's had his car towed from crashing.
Oh, true. So when the big winter happened in Colorado, he had his car literally like the next day when everyone almost died driving.
Yeah.
And they ticketed him.
Did they
And he was
ticket him
like-
for the bomb cyclone?
Yeah.
Because he was staying at my house for 3 days because of the fucking bomb
They
cyclone.
ticketed
'Cause he
the
literally couldn't
next
make it home
day.
from work. They ticketed him.
The next day. Oh, wow.
Man.
It was like legitimately like, dude, everyone almost died.
Yeah,
What the fuck?
Yeah, what my life flashed before my eyes, and you say I need to
The
pay a
next day.
ticket?
He didn't wait another day. It was literally like the afternoon
Yeah.
they must have showed up.
Yeah, they really did.
Like
They
probably like
literally
9
did.
a.m. It's like,
Those fucking quota
Dude.
chasing pieces of shit.
Yeah.
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 But anyway, I want to bring everyone. While we have guests, basically, I want to bring everyone on who was a prospective host. We have a couple recorded episodes with Will. My recording equipment was dog shit, and I did lose those episodes to time. But now Will's here. CaravanCrawl.com is still the blog, right?
Yes.
Oh.
I have a blog.
He
was
does
not
have a
telling
blog.
about that.
Yeah,
and
I
I
haven't
actually-
mentioned it. No, I think I mentioned it once or twice,
Nope.
maybe.
And
Shit.
it stays the same. It doesn't go down like after 6 weeks. Somebody.
Fuck
Yeah.
you!
Woo!
Fuck you!
Yeah.
God damn it!
Hey, Ben.
Don't go! Don't bring Ben! Don't bring him into this! God damn it!
He's
Don't
still
bring
over
more
there?
people in to mock me. No, he's not at his desk.
I swear, I like instinctively heard his giggle.
Oh, he'll be.
That
I
was
mean,
fucking weird. I like heard it.
it is funny as fuck.
That
He'll
was
be
like
back.
a ghost.
The ghost of Ben
Holy
at
shit.
his desk, even though he's
I was like,
upstairs.
that was
That's how
creepy.
much time he spends at his desk. Which mood? I'm in no place to criticize. I also spend that amount of time at my desk.
Yeah.
I work, I eat, I live there. It's fucking brutal, man.
You shit.
I shit,
You eat.
I
You
piss.
get out of bed.
Yeah, I tell my boyfriend to go get the bucket, and I,
Bedpans coming back.
bedpans. It's like the World of Warcraft South Park episode.
Yeah.
It's like that. Yeah. But anyway, no, I'm happy Will is here. Will is hanging out for a bit, and yeah, we're gonna record 2 episodes, and hopefully, I want to get some more people in, and then maybe eventually, we could pitch in for like a 4th mic, and then we can have guests all the time. Maybe we could be beset with house guests. You know what I'm saying?
Like a sex party?
Like a sex party. Yeah, this
Like
is
a
the
rotating
podcast, the
sex
combination podcast sex party.
And we'll
I
get
mean-
something out of it.
Well, it doesn't make any sense to have 4. So if you have 4 mics, that's just 2 twosomes. You're just having 2 separate sexes. It's got to be 3.
We can just all grab.
Well, maybe
What do
people.
you mean?
You
We all
can
have 2 hands.
Grab.
Maybe people want to listen. Maybe people want to just watch.
Reach around.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. The
They're staying in the
voyeurism
first
angle.
First room, yeah.
Yeah, the first room. They're staying in the first room. What was that you were saying about just grabbing?
Well, you
just
said
grab-
it's a twosome, but everyone can grab like the person to the right and just like hold on. It's a joystick.
I like.
Why
that
is it
it's like-
twosome? Like, why would it be a twosome? You literally have other holes.
It's just common. It's just common knowledge.
Is that a rule of the sex party? Only
No, it's not
twosomes?
a rule. It's just what happens when you have 2 sets of 2 people.
Oh,
You
I
have 4
thought
people, it ends up being 2 sets. You have 5 people, it's a threesome and a twosome.
I thought sex party was basically a hot tub without a water. You know, it's just like all in one spot.
Yeah, like a human centipede where
Yeah, they eventually just yeah, it's true. They just make a conga line.
You know what?
yeah, conga
You know
line.
what? It's exactly like Human Centipede.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, 20
don't know.
people in a parking garage, nail
Next
gun.
time, next time you're there, can you do a very awkward flash photography? Biggest flash.
I'm in
and
the.
then,
I'm in the.
You hear the wheel just.
yeah.
You're winding it up for another one. I'm at the front of the Human Centipede, and there's picture day lights.
Yeah.
Like school picture, like the umbrella lights, and then there's just people with their asses in their mouths, just like, huh?
Yeah, and
like,
then show me that. I'm assuming that's frowned upon.
When we did Will's episodes, we didn't talk about stuff like this though.
Oh,
I gotta say, we were.
Oh,
a
you
lot
gotta do your
more,
preamble.
We're a lot more on my preamble.
yeah.
Do you
Woo! You did it. You made a game.
all
Do
right.
you have like tabletop questions for me? Do you want to hear my?
I actually
tabletop
I've been
background?
frantically messaging people to give us questions.
You had a I know that originally when you guys
Holy
did the other,
shit! Zvi asked a really good question.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say you talked
Um,
about like Rokugan
Yes.
a long time ago, and I started playing like years after that. I tried to play it before, and then I forgot what you guys talked. What you exactly said about it? I think you said anyone that plays is dog shit and should kill themselves.
Yeah,
Probably.
See, I heard that too. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a history buff, and I think if you're going to commit to the bit, you should commit to the bit.
Oh yeah, I'm committing.
Yeah, but
So, yeah.
fifth Legend of the Five Rings. It's a good game. I remember I got introduced to it from like a really long 4chan thread.
Oh
And
wow,
it was
That's
somebody-
a weird way to do it.
Yeah, no. Somebody who was writing about their turtle clansman or whatever it was.
Oh, that's
Crab
tortoise.
clansman,
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I have this obsessive compulsive, like I grab PDFs whenever I see them,
Same.
especially about gaming.
I got a PDF folder of all the philosophy stuff. Yeah.
I'm currently trying to put together like a database of shit, and he gave me 62 gigabytes of PDFs, and from the download,
I don't have
from
that
the
much.
file names, you could tell it's just you see a PDF on TG, you rip it, you know.
Oh, so yeah, you have like you've had like big ones you've taken. I'm like individual because I don't find those big ones.
Mm-hmm.
I found like tradesmen's ones that I've been reading about, but like those are like manuals. And I'm like,
Where do you find
ooh.
tradesman PDFs?
So there's an electrical Discord, and then that one didn't have any, but there's an HVAC Discord, and they had
Ooh,
so many gigs of manuals of like courses. Like it was super because like HVAC is like appliance based, and so they get super intricate. They're like the marriage between plumbing and electrical, but as one trade because they do a lot of low voltage and stuff. But yeah, that one electrical we're a lot simpler, but we deal with niches. But HVAC was like they had tons of manuals of like furnaces, and there's tons of like you need to know the manual. And then you need to know the basics. While electrical is like, plug it over here.
Yeah.
If it
How big
shocks
is
ya,
it? Yeah, how big is the wire?
This is working. If you you should rip all the PDFs off of that Discord if you haven't already. Because I mean,
I
I
saved
imagine
it,
the
but I haven't
reason
ripped
why you obsessively just download all the PDFs because threads leave.
They just go
Yeah.
away. Yeah,
You know,
I agree. Yeah,
you never know.
There is the fat guy archive or whatever it is. You know what I
no,
mean?
I
You
should
can-
do that.
and,
It just take some time. Maybe there's a way to click all of them or something. Do you have an extension? I guess
I could show you how to use the terminal to basically grab it.
it was on OneDrive or something. I don't remember.
do you just like write
yeah.
Python and just fucking
I
rip
mean,
them?
It's not Python, but it's pretty much like a bash file that'll.
Okay.
Basically
Yeah, you just
grab
have to
it.
send me that because
God,
I'd love
You're
to do
so
that.
cool.
I found a website that had all of the Dragon magazine PDFs. that I
Yeah,
wrote
because you
quick.
used to. There was a time before they changed it where when 4th edition you could get subscription and then
Yeah.
you had access to all that, and then 5th came out and they booted all that away.
Yep.
And
And
then
now
everyone-
there's
and
now
then
Dragon and
it's
Dungeon
bad.
aren't even like a thing anymore.
Yeah.
That's true.
You got
yeah,
that
you
off
have to
the
get
Internet
it.
Archive, but unlike you writing your fancy bash script, I downloaded each file individually.
Jeez,
so fuck
that's so
you.
many. Dungeon and Dragon. That's so many of them.
So there is I'm trying to remember exactly what the link is or the program is, but you can basically say I want to rip this entire website down, but only the PDF files.
Makes
and
sense.
it'll
Yeah,
go
dot
through
PDFs,
and-
only
yeah.
those. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
I would love that.
Yeah, I
And,
think I would also love that. You should send that our way after the
Yeah, of course.
after the show's over.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
based.
I hate programming now. It is. The
Did you try to
worst.
do learning Python the hard way?
He did learn Python the hard
No,
way.
it's a
I didn't
website.
even
That's
did.
what it's called.
Oh,
no,
I tried it like a decade ago.
no, he like fucking programmed for a living and
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
I-
much worse.
I did. I taught myself how to program in high school, and I thought, oh man, this is going to be my ticket to Easy Street. And I'll
Yeah.
learn how to be a programmer, and I'll learn all this stuff. And after 10 years of programming, I was like, this is the worst. Why would anybody choose this?
No, jeez, yeah, I bet.
I remember I went to they were doing like a team building exercise, and they brought somebody in to teach survivalist stuff. Like,
For programming?
well, it was just for like team building, like, oh, you're
okay,
working for
in
this corp-
general. Okay.
And it was like, oh, use aspen trees as sunscreen, and
What the fuck?
here's how to find true north.
Why?
And I remember talking to this guy. I was like, so like, what made you excited about this, survival stuff? He was like, well, I worked as a programmer for 10 years, and I realized I didn't want to have anything to do with computers. And I was
Yes.
like, oh,
Yes.
oh,
Wow.
Yeah,
that's-
when you
Yeah.
deal with technology, you don't want to deal with like, oh, my lock is Wi-Fi based, and you're like, no.
the better you get at tech, the worse the worse it is.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's some electrical stuff. I'm just like, I'm not doing that. I'm going archaic as much as I can about some stuff.
I think it's a good. There's a Cal Newport. If you haven't read any of his books, you should read all of his books.
Sounds familiar.
I love Cal Newport's stuff. He wrote a book called Digital Minimalism. That's basically that, which
oh,
is like
talked about the title.
be as like anachronistic, as archaic as humanly possible, and then just introduce technology and stuff like as you need it or as you find it useful. And it's funny that like the more you learn tech, the more you're like, I could just get rid of so much of this, which I guess is because it's like you can use so little to do so much. Whereas everyone else is like, I can't do anything without my apps. Give me my apps.
I mean, that is funny because with electrical, there's like, here's all this simple and stuff, and you can use, and then you just, there's an app for it all. I could do it by hand, but like I could be wrong, and I don't want
Right.
to be fucking wrong, so I'd use like apps for that. But yeah, they're very simple systems.
Yeah, and it's something that like it's like you can learn it anyway, and you can learn it the hard way. But it's always easier just to have like the
Yeah, like certain things, you would want to learn that, but yeah, there's like overly, like I mean, home automation, that kind of stuff. Where,
Oh,
like,
I hate that.
yeah, every
Me
every
too.
part of the house is like you push a switch 3 times and then something works. Literally in the house in the mechanical room, like in the basement, there's a server rack, and that's just for like all the switches and all the lights, and then so they all cohesively work. And I haven't like done that myself. There's companies that specifically do that. They literally home automation things. It's
I don't.
jeez.
The Internet of Things stuff scares the shit out of me. I could never have a smart fridge. I could never put an Alexa in my home and shit. If you're gonna be doing that, if you're gonna be like doing all the switches and all this stuff, then it better be on servers you own.
Yeah,
With like
it's
open
pretty
source
LAN, I would
software,
say. But
Yeah.
it has to be like connected to something else, because then you go into the house and it detects your phone, and then you have a certain light path or something, or like the way the TV is, because like the speakers. I think that a lot of times intercom is installed in that too. But yeah, like I get into getting more into programming, the less you want to deal with other people programming things, and you're like, wow, I don't want to deal with that at all.
Yeah,
get that.
I mean, like one of the things about programming is like you get a new code base. You start a new job and you get a new code base, and you're like, what was the guy thinking
Yeah.
the last time he got his head in there? And then you just start writing spaghetti code for the next guy.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the tradesman joke. What the fuck was the last guy thinking? And
yeah,
then you,
exactly.
cycle continues.
It's dog
I
shit
s-
all the way down.
I
Yeah.
started a job, and I'm not gonna say who it is because I don't want to shame anybody. But they gave me the old programmer's computer.
Yeah.
And when
Oh.
they gave me the old programmer's computer, they were like, we haven't touched anything. We're like, here are all the logins that we were able to figure out. Like, here we go. This is, the computer she used. And I opened up the computer and started her browser. And the first page that came up was Girl Genius webcomic.
That's amazing.
The first thing she did when she rolled into work was she read that webcomic.
She read Girl Genius. I mean, I feel like you've got to be tired of working on that code base if you set the home page to anything except something to do with your job.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? If you
get the
come in and you
day
read
started
Girl
right,
Genius, yeah. I guess that's true. You got to get the day started right. Shit. What were you saying about Roku? So our exposure to Rokugan,
Oh, it's extremely flawed.
has just
It needs a new edition.
No.
your game.
So badly.
Oh,
I hate to be the one to tell you all this, but like I have not touched it in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So my RPG background was in high school. I had a whole bunch of friends who were into RPGs, into tabletop games, and I was never invited. I was that guy. So they'd be like, "Oh man, we had this really great adventure, and like so and so did this cool thing, and you know we fought this monster." And I was like, "Man,
Thanks, buddy.
that's really great."
is that
Good
why
to
you're
know.
a forever GM? Because you were like, "Fuck these guys! I'm running my own damn game."
Kind of.
That makes sense.
Hell
for
yeah,
Forever
dude.
GM. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really started reading like PDFs. I read everything I could get my hands on. And it wasn't until college that I got the opportunity to actually play. And my very first game, my very first RPG was I was hanging out with this group of guys playing Smash. And they were like, we want to start a game of Werewolf the Apocalypse.
Oh,
And I had never heard of Werewolf. And I was like, done. I'm in. Like, let me know.
yeah.
And I went to one session where I had to explain to the DM what Farsi was, and then I never came back.
You didn't start until college?
Yeah, I didn't start till college.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
Really?
Really, really.
That's crazy.
But I had
He's
been-
learning though. Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
The
no, because I mean, I
PDFs.
knew him in college, and I think I know the werewolf game you're talking about. I'm
Oh,
fairly
wow.
certain.
You
I
have
do.
a timeline. That's interesting.
We knew each other through college, and you know, I don't remember what year we really started hanging out. It was a little later,
Yeah.
but it was like freshman sophomore year. Like I had already been playing, like, you know, at the lunch table in like high school. I'd been playing for like a long time. I assumed you just been playing as long as I did, like nose buried in the books. I didn't realize you started in college.
Nose was buried
That's
in the
crazy.
books, but like practical knowledge wasn't until
it's
college.
different.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
It feels so much different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And,
nuts, man.
Yeah.
Because I just assumed that, like, I mean, your skill and your knowledge is such that I'm like, yeah, when I met you in college, I'm like, yeah, you've been doing this for what, 10 years? You know, like,
In the mind, I mean, sounds like it.
yeah, shit, man.
Just
that's
thinking
cool.
about, you know, like battle game in it, I guess.
Mhm.
But the first big campaigns I was part of was like Pathfinder First Edition.
Ah, okay.
And
Yeah.
I very quickly started DMing Pathfinder First Edition, and I was running for like it's one of those things where it's like when you want to learn a skill, just throw yourself into it
yeah,
because
just keep going, grind
you're
it
gonna
out.
suck at the very beginning, but the
Yeah.
more that you do it, the more experience you get. So I was running like for multiple groups, multiple friend groups. You know, you're sitting with a bad DM, and you're like, God, I hate this guy.
Yeah.
I can do this so much better. And then you know, the only
Sean.
That's what they say though, is that like bad fiction or like that stuff is how you get better too.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah, you're exposed to bad games, bad fiction, bad
It
whatever,
helps.
and you're like, fuck it, I could do way better.
Because you
than
can
that.
recognize the difference and you can work on it.
Mhm.
It's important to know that.
If there's half of anything anyone has ever done is powered out of spite, and the other half is powered out of this sucks, I could do better.
Spite's
you know what
great.
I mean?
Spite's great, and then like doing better because then you don't recognize. Because if you always have good DMs, you're gonna try to emulate that. But if you have the opposite where you see the bad, having both of that, you can start working on that middle point.
Did you play
Yeah.
in Sean's game? Or was that me and Casey?
That I don't know.
Okay.
The Sean that you know.
Yeah, that's
Well, I mean, I might know the Sean that you know.
I think you know the. I can't get into any further identifying details for obvious reasons, but I think you might know the Sean I know. But I mean, Casey, I knew during like college and stuff like that. We met like first thing like freshman year and stuff, and then we, you know, that's when Blue Mountain happened and all that junk. You know, when we were at your place,
Yeah.
Matt and all that.
Yeah.
But like, you know, we were. I just still can't get over the fact that we hadn't like played Pathfinder with you or even crossed paths or seriously up until like junior year.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I mean, it kind of makes sense because I was kind of insulated my freshman and sophomore years, and then I took a break and tried military basic training.
Oh
and
yeah.
bounced back out of that, and then had basically changed my entire life after that.
Oh,
and
wow.
my sophomore and senior years, I basically did an entire like bachelor's degree in 2 years.
Jeez.
So
You did. You were taking how many credits?
I was taking 20 credits.
Jeez.
I literally I signed up for all the classes, and I got an email, and they were like, you can't sign up for this many classes without an advisor giving you a signature. So I sent an email to an advisor. I was like, hey, I can't sign up for these classes. You know, would you mind? And I literally got an email back that said, sure, exclamation point, and it all opened up.
Damn.
Didn't
Oh,
even
shit,
see
You
me
had
in
to
person.
argue.
I bet
Sure.
you most people probably balk at the idea that it's like you have these people coming to you being like, you shouldn't take that many classes. They're like, oh shit, I guess I
I mean, I
shouldn't
guess
be.
trying, you know,
Yeah.
they're just like, sure, go ahead, try. Dude, go ahead, buddy. Have
Yeah.
fun. If you want to do it.
I was just so
Yeah.
done. I was like, I was ready to be through it. But yeah, no, Pathfinder was my first game, and then I really picked up a whole bunch of indie games. I got really like interested in just everything that was getting written and created and published and things like that. I was a big Vincent Baker fan
Yeah.
for a long time.
We've talked about
Dogs in the Vineyard.
Dogs in the Vineyard a couple times.
Oh, yeah,
on the
we played that. That was
yeah,
fun.
Oh,
yeah,
dude.
that's
Just a couple times.
he is like the man. Because yeah, you got into, I mean, the same thing as I did, like through TG and then through a little bit through the Forge, and then realizing, I should probably go somewhere else, and just all the cutting edge shit you got into.
Oh yeah,
we were getting into around the same time, I think.
yeah. It's so there's something called the 1% or the 99% rule of internet communities, where with every internet community, you basically have 1% of people are going to contribute, and
Yeah.
then of that 1%, 10% will actually comment, and then 90% of people will see it and then just not interact with it at all. And I was
Yeah.
very much part of that 90% of just like, oh, that's a cool thing. I'm not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
talk to anybody, but
Be a proud lurker.
yeah,
Lurker
exactly.
pride. Lurk more.
Yeah,
Save more.
lurk more, save more.
Yeah.
Don't talk to anybody.
The people are
Don't form attachments.
I get
Yeah.
that. I don't comment to do any of that. It's not there's so many times I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, I move on. I don't really care about arguments.
I feel like the people who are like posting and making shit, it's like their shit is the important shit. I'm just here to do my duty and archive it. You know what I mean?
I think the only TG thread I ever started was there was a subclass for Dark Heresy, the Warhammer 40K game, that was like a lawyer. And I remember I screenshotted the picture of the lawyer, and I said, like, does anybody have any cool Dark Heresy stories about this subclass? And I literally watched it from the first page, no replies, all the way down.
Oh,
to the 20th
no!
one, and got nothing. And I watched it drop off, and I was like, I don't think I should be posting.
My-
I think
my-
I'm a
yeah.
lurker.
My first few threads on TG were exactly like that. Like it's just like you just watch them go get bumped all the way down. Like I've had maybe like one, but it's like always like the just general shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like of course people would reply to this. There's no reason not to. Not because I had some genius idea. It was just because it's like, hey, what do you have you tried not playing D&D? And then and then it goes all the way. Ooh. Funny that you mentioned Dark Heresy because I think on my list here I have an entry that says The Curse.
Oh my god. So I'm a huge Warhammer fan.
Mm-hmm.
I never
Oh,
played.
yeah.
I was never a big tabletop guy, like the miniature game, but I loved like Warhammer. It was the first thing that I really got into, and so I started running Dark Heresy, and I don't know what it was about Dark Heresy or the groups I was running for or anything like that, but every single time I ran Dark Heresy, the worst stuff would happen, and I mean like. I would run a game of Dark Heresy, and two people who had been dating for a long time would break up.
We all been there.
Or
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
be running.
There goes
Oh.
your game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right.
There goes
right
your game.
down.
Yeah.
I mean, I would run games of Dark Heresy, and like I remember we were running online, and somebody was like, "Hey, I'll be right back. My apartment's on fire." And, like, the
happened
apartment's
here.
I literally was looking at running like just a one shot, and this is you actually.
It is.
I was
Yeah, I
was
was
at
waiting.
a coffee shop, and I was like, maybe I should run Dark Heresy. It's been a while, and it would be really good. So I had actually brought the book with me, and I was looking through it, and I was kind of putting up sample characters, and I get a call from Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, "Hey, I'm at the airport, and the car that I'm supposed to go home in is stalled, and we need to jump."
That was when we came back from Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
I literally brought it. I was like, "Hey, you want to touch it?" And he was like, "No."
yeah, you had it. Look, I'm not a superstitious guy, but that shit scares me.
Oh yeah.
Dark Heresy specifically. Yeah, you brought that in your book bag. Like you want to touch it. And I'm like,
Well,
no.
but
There's no way.
How long would you run it? Is it just because how many times you ran it that all that weird stuff happened?
Oh no. It
You
was
didn't
like
run
a
it that
one-
much?
I didn't run it that much because
But every time you did,
every time I did,
He's never had the
something-
chance.
Yeah.
He gets like
we
one or
did-
two sessions in and shit
got-
blows up.
I mean, I ran it for a group, like, I ran it for a group of people that I didn't really know very well because I was just trying to get as much gaming in as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And it like groups would immediately fall apart. And I mean, like,
That's
my mom
normal, though,
died,
especially if you
my-
don't know them. You know,
yeah.
if you don't know them, they have no reason to stay.
I mean, you're right.
That is
you're
true.
right,
9 times
but-
out of 10, groups do fall apart. But
I mean, because we've had times where, like, you know, like we said before, it's like you're there and you're pointing.
Yeah,
You're
thank
there
you.
and you're pointing.
I'm there and I'm pointing. Keep talking. Sorry.
You know, like I said before, sometimes you play and you're like, I don't really want to be here. But if if you're like don't have any connection to it, you know, I could see them just be like, I don't have to be here.
That is
You
true.
are
If I don't know.
110% right. In any other circumstance, you'd be correct. But I have been briefed in depth on this and have experienced the phenomenon multiple times myself. And I will tell you right now, it's different.
Oh yeah.
It's a
There's
different curse.
specifically Fantasy Flight Dark Heresy.
Yeah.
Only War, I'm sure we could play just fine.
I've never run Only War. I like Only War.
Are you a Rogue Trader guy?
I like Rogue Trader.
Have you played the Owl Cat
Not yet.
Studios one?
Not yet. It's on the list.
I know Ben's probably played it. Ben has to have played it.
Rogue Trader is
Those
a
guys who
fun.
did the Pathfinder computer games, and they did one for the old Only War. No, the old Rogue Trader rule set.
So Rogue Trader is a lot of fun because Rogue Trader kind of puts the RPG conceit on its head. Because normally you're like a down on your luck adventurer, like you have no money, no resources, and you have no idea what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And Rogue Trader is like, here's $1 billion in a piece of paper that says whatever you want to do, you're allowed to do. Go have fun.
Like pirates or something? Or
Oh yeah, it's kind of like pirates. Like you're the only person in an empire built on misery and suffering who's allowed to have a good time.
no.
It's a great time. Yeah, and they made a computer RPG of it recently using the same, because there's a new set of rules now. I believe is it Crucible 7?
Yeah,
does the
that sounds
new
right.
rule set. But yeah, like all the Warhammer 40K tabletop role playing games, like Dark Heresy, Rogue Trader, Only War, huge and hugely influential. And then Fantasy Flight lost the license, and they just stopped making them. And now Crucible 7's been pumping out its bullshit.
Well, as tabletop historian, a lot of the early games started with Black Library, and
Yeah.
they started with they were more skirmish games because they started with the specialist game Mordheim, and Mordheim was Warhammer Fantasy, and it was like you got your dudes, you name your dudes, it's really great. And they moved that to a game, I believe it was called Inquisitor, and very similar. You got your dudes, you name your dudes, it's really great. And then they did Dark Heresy, and Dark Heresy was originally like a Black Library imprint. And so a lot of the early, like, really proto role-playing stuff, because Games Workshop started as like, hey, we want to do D&D stuff. And that's where Warhammer Fantasy comes from. It's very much like it wears its inspirations on its sleeves.
Yeah, totally.
When Fantasy Flight takes over and they get the license, they basically do almost like a reprint of Dark Heresy. They kind of do more of a percentile system because that was the big hotness with like a lot of the early Call of Cthulhu games and that thing.
Yeah, they like the percentages.
And then after Dark Heresy, there was Rogue Trader was the second one, and it was very much a tone
So Rogue
shift.
Trader as an RPG,
Yeah.
not the computer game.
Yeah, as an RPG. And then after that, they did Death Watch, which was Space Marines.
What era is that Rogue Trader? You're saying when it started?
So there is a Rogue Trader era for Warhammer, which is like late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, so this far back. Okay.
Well, Fantasy Flight systems in particular were like early 2010s.
But yeah, the Rogue Trader of the Fantasy Flight is like late 2000s, early 2010s. Because I know Space Marine is like 2014
Yeah.
or 2012, 2014. And then they did Only War, and they started trying to change the system, and they were like, nobody wanted for them to change the system. And then they released probably the best one, which is Black Crusade.
Yeah, yeah.
Where you play the bad guys. Because
You
everybody
play
likes
Chaos.
playing-
It's awesome. Yeah.
Everyone
Oh
likes to
yeah,
play the
I'm
bad
so
guys.
used to the books for that, so I didn't know
Yeah.
how much it translated. I know Dark Heresy was
Yeah.
RPG. I tried reading it once,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Well, now it's Wrath and Glory, and invest in the Inquisitor one that
Yeah.
they've come out with, and
So-
generally I've heard they suck. Well, I mean, I don't know necessarily that they suck, but compared to the Fantasy Flight ones, I don't understand why Games Workshop, except being cheap as shit and just generally bad at producing and distributing their own material, Why would you ever get rid of the Fantasy Flight ones? Everybody loved that shit.
Well, the thing about the Fantasy Flight ones was they kind of dropped the ball because after, during the, and I might be wrong, I think it was Black Crusade and then it was Only War. But during the Only War game, you played Chaos and then you played Imperial Guardsmen. They started trying to change things with the way that characters progressed, because the way it used to work was when you leveled up, you bought a table, basically. You bought a level of whatever you wanted to be. So if you were, the base class tech priest, and you wanted to kind of spec into a different kind of tech priest, you bought a level of this new tech priest and you get a new table. And with Only War, they wanted to play around with that system where it was like, well, we want things to be more open, we want more player choice. And then they got the rights to make Dark Heresy 2nd Edition. And Dark Heresy 2nd Edition was, in the beta rules, was a radically different game. Like,
I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the tea.
Okay.
So it was a radically different game, and one of the big parts of that about that was it was going to invalidate all of that 1st edition stuff, because Dark Heresy, Rogue Trader, the Death Watch, all of those games were really mix and match. They all had the same system. They all had the same kind of character progression. If you wanted to take enemies from one game and throw them in another, you could.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of freedom in that. 2nd edition was going to take a lot of that away because it was going to make characters and make enemies very different. And there was such an explosion in like the forums and like the beta responses that Fantasy Flight kind of went back. And they said, you know what? We're not going to go this wild. We're going to make sure that the old stuff is kind of compatible with the new stuff. And this was the thing that put the nail in the coffin for Fantasy Flight, because if they had just said, no, we're making a new stuff, it would have been rough. But I think the beta rules
it's a lot of the
so
time the players
better.
don't know what they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So because Fantasy Flight went back, there was all of this bad blood.
So nothing changes, and then now everyone's bored.
And then they lost the license, and then Wrath and Glory comes up next, and Wrath and Glory went, well, we're not going to do a percentile system, we're going to use D6 pool system. And the other thing about Wrath and Glory was like, you could be whatever you want to be. So if you want to be Space Marine or a Sister of Battle or an Inquisitor or just a Guardsman, like, just show up to the table and roll some D6s and you'll be fine.
But that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, it doesn't make any sense, and also everything feels samey.
Yeah.
Like, everything feels like...
That's not...
Because everything has to be... Because then you have to balance things like, okay, yeah. Like, so originally it was like, all right, Only War. Or I guess Black Crusade. It's like we were playing Chaos very specifically. And so we can devote all of these source books and all this stuff to this. But now you play Wrath of Glory, and everything that would typically get its own game line now has to be balanced against each other, which means things that are radically different now feel the same.
Yeah.
And that is the main thing that I've heard about Wrath and Glory, and that I've seen from reading it, is just kind of like, who cares? At least with Fantasy Flight, each of the different like game lines was steeped in its own flavor. But Wrath and Glory just felt so high level and impersonal that it's like, why would anybody play this? Which is why most people who play Warhammer role playing still just use the Fantasy Flight stuff, because there's also something to be said about the game's done. Yeah. It's complete. Yep. There will never be new stuff released for it. You have everything. When you design tools for the Fantasy Flight Warhammer Fantasy, that's technically outdated is for a dead system, but you're never going to have to update them ever again.
Yeah, like the forums, which is like, is anyone playing Rokugan? And they're like, should I keep playing? And they're like, dude, you can play whatever you want. You don't. It doesn't have to be new to play it.
Well,
right.
I mean, that's the best part about tabletop games is like, at the end of the day, all you need is some friends, a piece of paper, and a pencil, and like, as long as you have an idea.
And if you understand it enough,
said.
you can keep going.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the old stuff.
That's what Gary Gygax said. If you realize that, shit,
I gotta hold it in.
Oh shit. Okay.
Oh, man.
That's what Gary Gygax said. Is it's like if if they realize all you need is paper and dice, we're fucked.
Yeah.
But oh man, where was I going with that? Yeah, no, you're fucked. I mean, well, I think on the other end of the spectrum, you have the fact that it's like you have people like us who kind of stay on the cutting edge of a lot of this because we're like the 1% of people who play TTRPGs who like
1% of tabletop gamers.
We are, yeah, the 99th percentile of
yeah.
Well, I mean, we are. So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, you remember all the OGL stuff, the Wizards Pinkerton
Yeah.
stuff, like all this junk. Nobody gives a shit. There's so many people who don't even know it happened. The fact that we know it happened is unusual. The fact that we keep up with developments with new systems, let alone developments in mechanics, let alone the fact that we're both like OSR guys, is like unheard of in 99.9% of the people who play tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of freedom with that, where you can be like, hey, show up to my house. I'm going to have beers. We're going to play a game. You're going to eat some chips. I'm going to teach you the rules, and it's just going to be easy.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love doing that. I almost feel like it's to the point where... Well, look, so for Rokugan, I'm of 2
I've been
minutes
here
of
the whole
this
time.
now. You have been here the whole time.
I've been here the whole time.
That's why I turned and I've been talking to you. You know.
Yeah. I
You
wasn't
weren't-
listening.
You weren't out of breath because you just
I wasn't
pushed
listening.
out your piss so hard.
Porcelain's
you know,
gone.
There's so, you pressure washed the porcelain.
Yeah.
There's sweat just pouring out of your hair right now. Just fucking.
What's up?
Oh, what's up, guys? I mean, I've been here, but what's up? I really like the sentiment that is like, hey, you guys show up. I'm going to give you a good time. We'll roll characters. There'll be dice. There'll be chips. There'll be snacks. And we just rock it. But there is something to be said about you're running Rokugan. I bought a copy of the rule book so that I can also play Rokugan. I've really been enjoying it because it's like...
We are talking about Legend of the Five Rings here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
I just
are.
want to confirm.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, 'cause
L5R,
it's not called
Rokugan.
Rokugan. It's called Legend of the Five Rings. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically the idea that it's like, you either want the players to like not know any of the rules so you can tell them what's going on, or you want them to have a copy of their rule book so they can follow along with the rules.
Dude,
you don't want
have
anything
to.
in between.
It's so hard.
Yeah?
It's such a hard thing
Well,
to play.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are rules about court intrigue and how you're supposed to act in front of certain people. And, like,
Well,
there's
it's
very
because
much,
it's just a mirror of an
Yeah.
Asian society.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
problem is they don't, like,
Well-
go super into, like, here's Edo period Japan. They're like, oh, this is a fantasy thing where we got
I
unicorn.
guess so.
It is
land.
kind of just enough. It is kind of just enough that it's like, oh, it's Japan, but it's not. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, I kind of would have almost preferred it to be just
and
Japan,
the,
so I
the
could read a
old-
history book and know what's going on.
The old editions, like, especially when you read, like, oh, the Scorpion Clan's the only one that's allowed to use gunpowder because they were talking with the Europeans that were not calling
Oh, I
Europeans.
can see that.
And, like, there was a big plot. I don't remember which edition this was, but, like, they had colonies in Africa, the Ivory
Oh, wow.
Kingdoms.
Yeah, they talk
Uh,
about the Ivory Kingdoms.
Yeah.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Like, it was a whole thing where it was, like, they really wanted to just do, like, Japan, but not Japan. And there's a part of that, like, world building wise, where it's like, don't worry your head about it.
Yeah.
But there's
I-
another part of me that's like, dude, just go all the way.
I almost wish they went
I
all
would
the
say the
way.
only way is to go full historical, because then it just gets confusing. It kind of does in theme, because I read several of the novels to get more into it, and yeah, the whole thing is like legitly, yeah, you rip off the wallpaper, it's Japan, like literally, the novels describe it more of like, yeah, etiquette is extremely important. It doesn't matter if you are having a bad day. You have to be extremely careful of who you talk to and stuff. It's in the novels. It does that. Yeah, reading it, I feel like you wouldn't get that because it doesn't talk about it too much.
And I think a big part of that is a game, like, the DM determines what's important in
Yeah.
a game like that, where, like, a huge part of, like, the Mantis clan is there used to be merchants and they use peasant weapons, quote unquote. But at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter unless the DM really pushes you on it and goes like, hey, your Mantis guy is kind of out of place here. And, you know, what are you going to do to make this kind of, like, go away or make this more interesting?
Yeah.
And it's really up to the DM to do that. And for me, like, I ran a Weird World 1640s game.
Oh, yeah, I remember
that
you
was
talking
set
about
in
this.
Europe. And
This is your big one.
yeah, I ran this. This is one of the first big major campaigns I'd ran. I ran it in Pathfinder because it was the only thing I knew.
Yeah, it's all easy conversion. Yeah.
But it was very much like, okay, you guys are starting out in southern Italy and you've got to make it to England and, like, here's all this stuff. But I very much peppered in, like, okay, well, here's what's going on with the 30 Years' War, and hey, maybe the English
Yes,
Civil War
I
starts a
know
little
what you
early,
mean.
and-
Yeah, you're like, this is so interesting to me, and they go like, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, huh?
It's like
Interesting.
I
I
wonder
don't know.
why It makes me. I would love to be a fly on the wall in the meetings where they decided that Legend of the Five Rings would just be not ! Japan instead of just being Japan, because it's like, I don't know, were they scared of like history buffs correcting them, or like the angle of like, you can't make a game about Japan if you're not like, from Japan.
I guess because if
like,
you add the fantasy angle, it just is weirder.
Because it lets them do whatever they want when they add the fantasy angle, but it really makes me question. Because there's been so many times in our Rokugan game, which has gone super well. You've been running it superbly. I've been really having a good time.
What are you about to say, buddy?
I'm about to say,
what about you about to
all right,
say?
batten down your hatches. So I don't have to cut this out. No, but basically, it's like there's been multiple times when we've been playing the game where it's like, oh, it's like Japan, but. To the point where it would be easier if we just said, "Oh, we're just in Japan." So I'm really curious as to what what drove the decision to make it not Japan, but keep it so close to the chest still.
It probably wasn't like a hang up on like, oh, well, we don't want to be insensitive because
it was made in like 2000 whatever.
Even before that, I mean, I don't remember.
That wasn't even a
because
thing.
It used to be a card
Oriental
game.
Adventures.
Yeah.
I have the book. Casey has the book, so I have it.
Oriental Adventures, like the D&D book.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
what
like AD&D. Because they had Oriental Adventures. It started in AD&D, and they made an adaptation in 3.5. But that's my point. Is it's like as of like 2006, 2007, 2008, nobody really gave a shit whether it's like, all right, yeah, we're just gonna write something that takes place in Japan and just kind of do whatever we want with it.
I think it's because the clans in the lore, the clans are like based off of like major gods. And then the gods basically head those clans, and sometimes other clans will come up and down based on like if like the Spider Clan goes away in the new edition. But it makes sense. I don't think it's like you should just the baby out of the bathwater saying. I guess it feels like they should throw it out, but it's just like I don't know. Again, you don't have to care.
But then you spend so much time explaining something that you could just open up a history book to learn.
Yeah, but for me is that's why like last time or the times before, it's like if you do something out of etiquette, I'll just tell you because like if we're not we haven't been playing for 10 years, so like if you're like out, if you don't understand the world, I'm not gonna hold you down because then you're not gonna have fun. You'll be like, I want to do this crazy thing, and I'll be like, okay, you probably wouldn't be doing this, but here's what you could do instead of being like, yeah, go ahead, do it, and then everyone hates you. It's like I'm just trying to ease you into the world. I don't need to like explain like the whole history.
There's a separation between player knowledge and character knowledge. Of like, hey, I want to do this, and you say, well, your character would know that these things are kind of in place. This would be impolite. All that stuff.
Because for me, it's like like you were saying, oh, there's so much interesting history stuff, which I've tried to do Rokugan for many years. And that's the same thing. Is like, oh, don't you know this is important historical things happening right now? And then it's like they don't care. And you unless you like put them in it. But then that's just so much extra you're doing. It's better just to be like, you still pepper it in, but you pepper it in and it's just like, isn't that cool? And then maybe they'll be interested. Because I had one player that was reading Shogun, like the famous one. I forgot the Cavil or something. It's like one of the most famous like novels, a Japanese novel by like an English guy.
Okay.
But it's about a barbarian guy who gets washed up in Japan, and then he deals with it. He's like, "Look, I have guns and everything. Aren't I really special?" And then Tokugawa is like, "No, not really." And that's the whole thing. The main character is pushed around everywhere, and then Tokugawa is just about to take over after Hideyoshi dies.
Yeah.
And so it's like the main character's like, I'm European, isn't this cool? And the Dutch have been there for a while. And they're just like, yeah, sure, you have a gunship. So everyone obsesses about this gunship, and then Tokugawa burns it. He's like, I don't care. I'm playing 4D chess. No one else is doing it. So it's like, in that way, it's like, yeah, they're barbarians bumbling, but it's just a different game. It's definitely it's a different way of. I like it because for me, the way that D&D runs is you're constantly as I said many times here, you look at your character the whole time, and I'm the opposite. As the joke is, I don't even look at my character because it's more important to me for me to be in the world than read your character for me because I rather just be in there. Like I rather just see what the world is and jump off the walls, or you see a cup and you throw it at somebody. Yeah. Then like, oh, if my character's a fighter, I can't do anything fun, and it's like. No, you could do other things. You could even try magic.
I mean,
Isn't that you could try magic?
This sounds like the BX, do you include the thief or not argument.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is like, why would I have a thief with the climb skill when I can just describe how I'm climbing with the ropes and the pythons?
And I think a big part of it is like things. One of the cool things about different settings, different characters, different games is you force players to care about different things that they might not ordinarily.
That's
care
why
about.
I like Rokugan for that reason.
And so, going back to, I'm going to mess up his name again. The guy who wrote Dogs in the Vineyard,
Baker.
I wrote a samurai hack
Baker.
to Dogs in the Vineyard.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And one of the things that I really wanted to run with it is firefighting in Edo. Like all the players played firefighters in Edo, and one of the things about Edo period Japan was to keep the daimyos in control. The shogun basically said you have to maintain 2 homes, one in Edo, one in your home province. And you
Yeah,
had to
I
travel
think
back
I
and
remember
forth,
hearing
right?
about that. Yeah.
And you played firefighters who basically had to navigate the court politics, where in a normal D&D game, it's like, well, I'm just going to, do whatever I want, and I'm going to go drink at the tavern, and I'm going to go into these dungeons. But I wanted to write a game where it was like, no, actually, firefighting in Edo is the coolest thing ever, and you guys should be players.
Yeah.
And that's one of the cool things about tabletops, especially Rokugan and really all sorts of games.
Yeah, I bet.
Especially OSR games where you're playing with historical settings, games where you're playing with like just out of the world Carcosa kind of settings. Like,
Yeah.
like you get to emphasize, hey, these things matter in this game, and how does that kind of make you feel? Like one of my big games is Ultraviolet Grasslands by Luka Rajic. And Luka Rajic, like Ultraviolet Grasslands is all about like distance. You are a week away from everything, which means that thing of supply, that thing of food is actually a lot more interesting than it would be in a D&D game.
Yeah, just doesn't work in that game.
Another game would be I'm thinking of Veins of the Earth by Patrick
Oh,
Stewart,
yeah.
where that big game is like Light, the Loom, where the Loom, an hour of light is a unit of treasure. And it's like, okay, we're going to do this whole game, and it's all about what can you see and what you can't see in cave systems. Like, it really changes, like, what... The cool thing about games is it changes what people care about.
Yeah.
This is kind of... yes. So this kind of pushes us into a conversation I've been wanting to have.
All right, we're done for today. Yeah, thank
Fuck you!
All right.
Fuck you! We're already almost at
thank
50.
you.
We're
I'm
already,
glad you're here. I'm so glad.
Oh,
looking at
man,
the
I've
timer
been so
right
happy.
now. We're already almost at 50 minutes. I think we're going to get a good amount of content out of these episodes because I ain't even close to ready to stop talking.
Cool.
Or to stop listening. There's a lot of cool
Yeah,
shit
you stop
flying
listening.
around.
You're back to listening.
You gotta listen.
Yeah.
You gotta listen.
What were you
I
saying?
got a big old brain. You better listen to it.
Huge brain, 99th percentile brain. In
Yeah.
fact, yeah. What was the IQ? What was the
Oh.
IQ? The bigger one.
98.
Use the bigger one.
98.
90.
37.
37 IQ conversations right here.
Room temperature.
Room temperature convos. I like that.
And it's cold.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
I love-
and the heater ain't on. It's winter and the heat ain't on. No, I think it's really interesting. I think it's something that I feel like a lot of like GMs learn late, but they should learn first, which is you really have to narrow down the situation you're in. Like, I want to talk about this more later, but we finished Impossible Landscapes for Delta Green recently, and I mean, the idea is like, all right, you were FBI agents, you work for Delta Green, you were investigating this case, full stop. There's no room for, oh, I want to do this quirky thing. There's no room for, I have this backstory.
Yeah.
There's no room
It makes
for,
you
I
not
want to
care about anything else. Yeah.
Right.
That's
you
true.
put them in a cone. You make their starting options as limited as humanly possible.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with UVG, even though there's a lot of like options you could do. At the end of the day, it's like, all right, world's ending, you're in a caravan, what do you do? You know what I mean? But that kind of extends. I like what you said about that different games make you care about certain things.
Yeah.
Because I keep getting in arguments about how you can't just jam everything into D&D 5e, and mainly because Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition cares about combat, and that's it. You read the rules, it cares about combat. Any role-playing or anything else you do on top of that is something you're adding on top of it, to the point where it's like, not only as a GM do you have to determine what the players care about, but the system you pick determines what the players care about. UVG cares about distance, so the players care about distance.
Well, I don't mean to come on your podcast and disagree with you.
Dude, do it. Yeah,
fuck
get
my
'em.
shit up. I mean, look,
Get
look,
'em.
hey. At the end of the day, I can just remove whatever you say.
I mean, you're right.
I can just take your words, chop them up, and just make you be like, you aren't right, and then I'm right. It doesn't matter.
He's lazy. He won't.
I do.
He totally won't.
He's not listening.
He's let slurs
Are you
through.
sure? Are you?
He's let him through. I've listened.
Have I let any through? No, you gotta let me know if I let any through. Or I guess it doesn't really fucking matter, does it? Because that's one of my worst fears ever. But no. I'm petty.
Well,
I'm petty. I'll take the time to make you agree with me. I'm kidding.
Yeah, what's your counter?
My counter would be one of the reasons why games like 5th edition have lots of rules about combat is the place in which players have the most to lose. There aren't a lot of rules around conversations with noblemen in 5th edition because
it's go to a different town.
Yeah, well, it's noblemen are not expected to kill you if you insult them. Whereas there are a lot of rules for that in Legend of the Five Rings because there are
your family disowned you, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
D&D, no one gives a shit if your family disowned you.
Nobles and their guards have stat blocks in 5th edition, and they all suck.
The reason why combat has so many rules in 5th edition is it's the place in which a player has the most they can lose. They can lose their character, and then it becomes a big deal with bringing them back. And there's an entire adventure in Blades Against Death in the game system that I am frantically trying to remember the name of and can't.
That's all you, buddy. Hey, you're disagreeing with me. I'm not gonna. Oh, okay.
DCC.
Yeah,
DCC has an entire adventure.
I was saying,
about
you're disagreeing with me. I'm not gonna help you.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
see no mercy here. Okay.
Well, don't worry. I think I've got you. But
fuck you.
Nice.
Fuck you. No, you do got me.
It's a place where players have the most to lose. Whereas in OSR games like Bastionlands or I'm also blanking on the name of that particular game, where the idea is, well, it's an OSR game, you just roll a new character, don't worry about it.
Oh,
true.
Rules against combat is incredibly deadly, but the idea is, well, you're not going to lose a lot because just roll a new character and we'll be back in the game. Whereas in 5th edition, there are lots of rules about combat because characters matter a lot more in 5th edition.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense, but I would say that the same thing does appear in OSR games. You hear the saying that it's like you should flip over your character sheet and play, and if you have to flip over your character sheet, then that's a fail state. The main reason because the only things on OSR character sheets are essentially combat stats, are essentially things you need to roll and are swingy because you've entered an adversarial encounter that you did not plan so well for that you're just going to beat it on the outset. And yeah, it looks different and the stakes are different because if an OSR character dies, you play one of your hirelings or whatever. But I would argue that it's still the same from 0E all the way to 5E. The point of the matter is that the characters have the most to lose in combat. If they can role-play their way out of anything else without interfacing with those rules, then they're good. But that's what makes me say that, D&D 5th edition isn't like this story game because the story game part is you trying not to interface with the combat rules because you don't want to die. And it's like, and that makes you care about combat. It makes you care about hit points. It's in the negative, but it's still like, hey, if you're playing a story game, don't you think you should be playing something like, I don't know, Burning Wheel?
Do you guys talk about Burning Wheel a lot?
We've talked about it a few
I almost
times,
talked
yeah.
about it 6 times already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Here we
Oh,
go.
here he comes.
Dude,
He's pulling out the picture of Luke Crane with the hole in it.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Hole in his
He's
mouth.
kissing it.
He's been canceled, so
Well,
I can say whatever I want
that
about him.
DCC, though, yeah, you make your character very quickly.
Yeah.
While 5th, yes, you can do Beyond, but it's still like the emotional, like you still gotta have so many options. DCC, you're done immediately.
Yeah.
But
That
yeah,
is
they're
true.
similar.
Well, you don't
But
even
there's
have a
so
choice.
much more effort.
DCC gives you 0 levels. It doesn't even give you a choice.
Yeah.
Even in BX and OD&D, you still have a choice. But I think your point is that it's like there is more rules in places where the game cares.
Yeah.
So if you have a game that cares a lot about combat, it means it cares a lot about whether the characters live or die. OSR games still have that, like OD&D still has that emphasis on combat. In fact, Gary Gygax is on quote saying that characters should have a 95% survival rate, which almost feels like he's just like making fun of the people who have characters who die and being like, get good scrub. But
Maybe.
I mean, it follows your logic in that it's like, yeah, there's so many rules for combat because this is the only time we care. Characters shouldn't be dying. If their life is on the line, then we need a lot of rules to adjudicate it.
Yeah, and I mean, like old school, like really old school D&D, like first edition stuff. There are lots of rules, and there's a breakdown of this into second edition in a little bit, but there's a lot of rules in first edition because like dungeon crawling is a very important part, and finding traps is a very important part of the game, and like spending particular kinds of currencies, like how long does this torch last? How long can you get on a ration of food? How long can you, explore this space for until you have to leave is a big part of that game.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit there's a transition into second edition where second edition is both to write out people who should not have been written out of the game, but also because there's this idea of tournament play of like, well, now I'm not the only person who's going to be DMing this. There's going to be people from all over the country who are all going to be participating in this kind of tournament-style play where people will earn points and it will be, a more of a game where rules are added to adjudicate things that might come up but might never come up. And second edition is the first one that has underwater rules for a reason. Like, what happens when you're exploring the ocean? The only reason that anybody cares about if you're exploring the ocean is because there are tournaments where that might come up, and that's it.
True. I even in like BX or like because AD&D is when the tournament stuff got really codified. In basic D&D, I feel was very much like that. This isn't tournament level stuff. It's not as like adjudicated or comprehensive. But even then, it's like all the maritime adventuring stuff. I've yet to see anyone use it, like at an OSR table use the maritime adventuring stuff, use like the name level, you have a stronghold like type shit. That's when the game stops being interesting. I don't know. Nobody even counts squares anymore. When's the last time mapping sucks, man. Mapping is rough. There's this YouTuber has a lot of really good videos on OSR stuff, GFC D&D, and he has a whole video. It's like 15 minutes long about here's a standardized way you can call out directions to your mapper to make sure that they're like, drawing shit right and whatever. And on one hand, it's really exciting because I think it's really cool to have a situation where from the geometry of what you've mapped, you can discern whether there's patterns or secret rooms or whatever like that. But on the other hand, it's like, man, even if you have more than one mapper, giving a shit about like, all right, it's north 20 feet, east 30 feet, cut north 20 feet, and then it goes for another 10 feet, and there's entrances in the, and it's just like, at what point do I stop talking about like dimensions and entrances and start talking about the actual game? So I guess I feel the same way about things like, what's the speed of the canoe? How long can I breathe underwater? How many people can I tax? I guess it all falls along the same lines.
Are you looking for the phrase "rulings, not rules"?
Ew. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Well, but no, it's not rulings, not rules. Because there's rulings, but there's like a whole hell of a lot of rules, even in these early games, for stuff just like that. I guess my question is, when it comes to all of this, is it's like, when does the tournament approved rules end and where do the rulings begin?
Immediately.
All right.
Yeah, like nobody plays in tournament rulings anymore. Like
that's true.
I think rules, especially for, and I'm very much trying to think in like Five Rings kind of stuff where it's like there's a lot of lore things, there's a lot of like rules about particular etiquette stuff. But there does reach a point in which, like, you might make a ruling about a new clan or a new thing that somebody has started doing, and that becomes a rule for the table. But every rule set is supposed to be and this is kind of just the way I think about it. Every rule set is, imagine a DM has gone ahead of you and put in the work, and they have put together a game, and then they give it to you, and they're like, okay, you can run this at your table now. You as the DM are the game designer first and foremost. And if you find rules that you don't like, understand why they're there. Understand, like, hey, this actually balances this particular activity.
Yeah.
But if your players don't think that way, don't feel bad about throwing it out.
Everything's kind of tailored to who cares.
Yeah.
How many things have you thrown out of our Rokugan game when it's like, were there instances where it's like, nobody gives a shit about this? I don't give a shit about this. I'm just going to throw it out.
Not yet. I mean, at least I don't think so. I think it's just more like, as I said before, it's like, if you don't, I'll know if you don't understand something about the world by how you act. And in Rokugan, relationships are key. Like, they're the bee's knees. In D&D, they're not.
Yeah.
That is true.
You could just burn bridges.
Yeah.
Rokugan,
you
people
murder Hobo
remember that.
Yeah.
And people will tell people. And the court is very small circuit, and they'll tell each other. So
and it has a direct effect on your honor, your things that are on your sheet.
you could be canceled in my game.
Yeah.
You can get
And in
canceled.
D&D, you can't. You'll just kill somebody else.
That's true. That's crazy. The first game in which you can get canceled.
That's what I've been trying to burn in. Is like you can do whatever you want, but like I'll tell you when that's going to have serious consequences to you, like you being a character.
So let me ask you this: have you ever? Has there been a situation in which you've presented that option? Like, yeah, you can do that, but there's going to be consequences, and players have gone, you know what? I understand there's going to be consequences, but this guy needs to be brought to justice. Or, you know what? I
haven't
care.
played enough, but I mean, just recently it was like, hey, etiquette-wise, you should talk to the governor when you show up in his land.
That was a driving force of the entire session. The fact that we had to go talk to the governor and we knew we had to meant that we had to reframe everything in that before we do anything, we have to talk to the governor. But there's things we wanted to do before we talked to the governor. So we had to make sure that they were things that we would just so happen to do on the way to talking to the governor. But that etiquette, that expectation alone, reframed the entire session. I don't think we've ever been in a position where it's like, yeah, but fuck that guy yet.
No, we haven't played enough. Yeah, because that one is like, yeah, they're acting as an authority in this town. And even in a European sense, I mean, you wouldn't want to do that either. It's just no one gives a shit. But especially in Eastern sense, you're showing up as an authority doing investigation. You have to talk to the governor. He's going to go, what the fuck are you doing in my house? I have the authority. What are you doing? And so, yeah, they made a big hubbub about it. They showed up, and he's like, I don't give a shit what you're doing. Just don't fucking mess with my house. And they already did, but he didn't know that. I didn't have...
I thought we didn't have to mess with any of the opium trade shit.
You're causing ruckus. They made homeless people like...
We are...
Like,
hey, that was before we got to the governor, and I can explain that as not being my fault. I was trying to be nice.
No, they just passed out money a lot in this like slum area.
Oh.
And that would still be like, don't fucking cause a ruckus.
The Masamusa effect.
Yeah.
The Masamusa.
Yeah. But like in general, it's like, your jurisdiction is really important in a relationship game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you showing up and like, oh, we're gonna fight about investigate why a guy died, and it's like, cool, but I didn't give a shit about that, so I don't want you to. Is something that could happen.
Yeah.
In this case, in this adventure, it was not. But there's other games where like, yeah, like even like tons of Eastern movies, which is like, hey, I want to investigate. I mean, even Western movies, I want to investigate this. Don't. And the Eastern game's like, good luck trying to have any resources because everyone's against you, and it's the same thing,
And I think relationships is a good way to put it. I think another way you could put it is obligations. Like, you have responsibilities as a samurai.
I am heavily trying to reinforce that aggressively reinforce that.
Yeah.
Because D&D does not do that.
Oh yeah, because you are kind of
you're already an outcast.
Yeah, you're
by design.
You're a lone sword. You're a sword against death.
I've been trying to think. That's interesting that you bring that up. I've been trying to think about what it is that Legend of the Five Rings does that other RPGs don't. And I like it, but it's like I'm kind of like, I mean, when you look at the systems and stuff, I mean, it's very similar to like other Fantasy Flight stuff. Other games have done that stuff. But reframing relationships as obligations is interesting. Because I even think I've been looking into a lot of like World of Darkness and stuff. You know, I've been preparing to run a lot of Vampire and stuff, a lot of the Renegade Game Studio stuff that's coming out. And there's a lot of flaws. Like, you know, you have enemies, you have like touchstones that you got to take care of, you have all this stuff. But I feel like even then they haven't properly mechanically reinforced this idea that you are obligated to them. Like, yeah, you maybe take a couple like humanity stains or whatever. Maybe you have a problem, you know, maybe for one scene that comes up and then you leave it alone and the storyteller forgets about it. You know, I think Rokugan, that is different in that it's not just in the game world, but even in your character's stats. If I lose enough like honor or status or whatever it is, I'll have a hard time telling peasants what to do. You know what I mean? Like, no one will ever take me seriously.
True. Yeah.
And wouldn't that be crazy if you're playing D&D 5th edition, you walk into a city and you're like, I'm a hero, and everyone's like, ha ha ha! Yeah, right, you fucking loser. You know, so many people would be like, what do I even do now? You know, like that is a special thing.
Be kicked out of town. Yeah,
that's a special thing that game does. Is it mechanizes the idea that people don't even take you seriously?
Yeah, and the idea of approaches. Which is, the system is highly flawed, but the idea of, like, when you approach something, I always hated the idea of, like, okay, you walk up and you do the athletic check. You do the fucking athletic check. Everything comes the cookie cutter. You know, if you don't do it, it doesn't matter. But, like, Rokugan is, if you think about it, you could do any approach in any way.
That's not new. Theory. Like, I mean, other games did it, you know.
Oh, I'm sure they did. I don't know.
Fate Accelerated did it, you know.
Yeah.
No. Legend of the Five Rings hasn't changed much as a system over time, and it came out.
I don't remember.
The new edition, 2019.
Maybe they were the first one. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I think and that's a whole nother thing where it's like, as a DM, you should not be asking somebody to roll dice for a thing that you really want them to succeed. Like, if there is a door, and on the other side of that door is the plot, do not ask for them to roll if they kick down the door. Just say, you kick down the door.
Yeah, unless there's a negative associated.
And there's also the other, I forget which game pioneers this, but like doing things versus doing things risky or with consequence of like, and I'm thinking of Blades in the Dark. I believe Blades in the Dark does this.
I wouldn't know.
Where it's like, okay, you can do this, or you can do this, and for a particular, like for an extra effect, you can, you know, lose some damage, or you can take a bond or whatever it is, where there are consequences for doing or for succeeding. Failing with success, I think.
I could see that in other editions, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, everybody has been like, there's been a lot of people dick writing Blades in the Dark since Candela Obscura came out.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Matt Mercer was literally like, oh, man, I don't really want to do D&D anymore because they're not giving us enough money. What if we stole Blades in the Dark? Wouldn't that be funny? What if we stole it and then did a Call of Cthulhu with it? All right. Meeting over. Game designed. Let's go, you know. Did you know they forgot the death rules in the first?
Yeah,
they had to
I read
put
that.
out fucking errata for the fail state of the game.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with like people don't realize D&D is an anime.
Yeah,
like you're playing an anime character. Like he can do all sorts of cool and awesome stuff.
Nat 20, I win.
Yeah, Nat 20, I win. Like
natty 20. Yeah,
but yeah, like. I think the only person who's probably, and maybe this is too like name call-y inner, you know, inside baseball stuff, but I think, oh my God, now I'm blanking on his name.
The guy who made Blades in the Dark?
The guy who's making the new RPG, and he's like, I'm going fantasy. Not Matt Colville. Matt Colville. Colville? Cut this out. I'm not. I'm sorry.
There's no way I'm cutting it out because I also want to make fun of Matt Colville. I'm pretty, because he's like, oh, we're gonna be the new 5th edition.
Yeah,
and yeah. It's like MDM.
Yeah,
MDMA.
5.
Yeah, Matt Colville's no RPG. MDMA.
Yeah. I think he might have a good shot. I haven't read anything about it, but I just trust.
You know the Alexandrian, right?
Yeah.
So Matt Colville's
Jquaring the dungeon or whatever it was.
Jacaying the dungeon.
Yeah, that's
Jacazing the dungeon.
Jacazing.
Yeah. The thing that fucking drives me crazy about Justin Alexander is the same thing that drives me crazy about Matt Colville, which is that I watch their YouTube videos, And I within a minute, I'm like, I can't fucking stand this. I can't stand your looking at the camera and saying something perfectly. Wow, meme. Am I right, guys? And it's just I can't do it.
It's a meme? What?
I would never give Matt Colville $1 because of his YouTube videos are fucking atrocious.
Saying something perfectly is a problem? What? I don't know. I don't get
It
it.
is. It's too perfect.
Too perfect?
Yeah.
So is it like
too
a
perfect.
pre-recorded video?
You ever watch
Yeah.
Dexter? It's like that. I'm kidding.
No.
What I'm trying to say is Matt Colville and Justin Alexander have killed people, and I have proof. No.
Yeah, inside
No, yeah,
baseball,
it's
you guys scored.
MDM. Matt Colville's game is like MDMC.
Sure, why
I
not?
think it is. What was your point?
So it's
about
not
that?
out yet?
It's
I'm
not
sure.
out yet. I think if somebody's
No.
gonna make like an indie style fantasy game, I think he's probably gonna be the closest.
It's either
But
going to be that, or it's going to be the Schwalb, the one after Shadows of the Demon Lord.
Ooh, yeah.
the weird wizard
Shadows.
one.
Have you read any Shadows of the Demon Lord? All right, so the guy who designed Shadows of the Demon Lord worked on 5th edition and moved on to another fantasy. It's more like dark and gritty and stuff. One of the things that he's done that I find really, really cool is he took bounded accuracy to the next level. So in 5th edition, let me go step back. So in Pathfinder 1st edition, the numbers just went up.
Yep,
So-
that's all that happened.
Like if you were fighting a goblin at 1st level, he had an AC of 10. Whereas if you were fighting something at level 30, you could have an AC of 60. And you were rolling a d20 because that was still the core mechanic, but the numbers that you added to that kept going up and up and up.
Yeah.
So in 5th edition, they were like, no, this is ridiculous. So there's something called bounded accuracy, where at the end of the day, you're never adding a number more than like 15 in 5th edition. So regardless of if you're level 1 or you're level 20, if a goblin stabs you, there's always a 5% chance he's getting through.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance, yeah.
Shadows of the Demon Lord took it a step further and said, okay, if you have advantage and disadvantage, instead of rolling another D6, you're rolling another D20, you're rolling a D6. D6s cancel each other out. You're really only fighting over plus or minus 10. And I really like that because it retains that more gritty, low fantasy feel that Shadows of the Demon Lord goes for.
The big thing from
I'm sorry for that, by the way.
Sorry for what?
Oh, that entire ramble.
No, I think it's great because I mean the thing that gets me about Shadows of the Demon Lord is not the boons and banes thing. It's the, forever since 3rd edition, modifiers have been score minus 10 divided by 2.
Yeah.
And they just do like score minus 10.
Yeah.
Like there's this Schwalb's RPGs make more use of the swinginess while still keeping it within like this bounded accuracy, whereas a lot of times the swinginess in like the past couple editions of D&D feels more like a bug than a feature.
Yeah.
Like you hear this idea that it's like, oh man, I have this plus 10, I should just be able to do it. But then in Shadows of the Demon Lord, it's like, no, I shit my pants and die. Like, that's just how it works. That's just how the game works. I think he did a really good job of taking those idiosyncrasies and then just being like, well, now that's a feature. Now that's a thing that the game is flavored after. It's kind of why, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, it's like, oh, characters die all the time and aren't good at, like, anything? Let's make it a horror game.
Yeah.
D&D at the end of the day is a horror game. When you are so uncertain whether you can even pull off something you're good at, that's a horror game. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, I believe MCDM stands for Matthew Colville Dick Masturbator. That's what it says on his site.
We'll end it there.
So I'm not sure. No, I do want to. Yeah, fuck